Hi, this is Rupert Holmes, and I'm thrilled to be with Joe Zito and Bois Podcast. Coming up right now.
Wide screen, wind around my eyes, blind my mind with lies, find a world like nothing that I'd seen. Oh, down into the terminal, both of us fired. So we entered the terminal just as you smiled. Before the dawn begins to shine, it's hazy blue light. Let's get crazy tonight. If you like Piña Coladas and getting caught in the rain, if you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain, if you like making love at midnight in the dunes of the Cape, then I'm the love that you've looked for. Write to me and escape. Him, what's she gonna do about him? I'm so sorry you have just reached my answering machine. I'm not in at present, I'm sure you know this whole routine. Leave your name and number, and I'll try to get back to you. You have 30 seconds to talk to me before you're through.
Welcome back to an episode of the Bois Podcast. I have a very special guest today. He's a singer, songwriter, novelist, screenwriter, playwright, composer, and two-time Tony Award winner. Some of my guests' albums include Widescreen, Pursuit of Happiness, Partners in Crime, Adventure, Full Circle, and many more. Some songs my guest has written or his song include Terminal, Weekend Lover, Let's Get Crazy Tonight, Escape the Piña Colada Song, Him, Answering Machine, and many more. He's also the author of the novel, The McMaster's Guide to Homicide, Murder Your Employer. So welcome the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Rupert Holmes. Welcome, Rupert.
I'm very glad to be with you. I really am. I like the part about the myth, too.
It's an honor to have you on. Like, you are a legend, though.
The man, the rumor.
The man, the rumor, the legend. You like that one? Well, welcome on, Rupert. So what have you been up to? How's Rupert doing? That's the first question. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I think I'm doing pretty good today. It's been a long day, hectic one, but just did some. I think I got off a couple of letters that I had to write, and I'm making some good progress on the sequel to the book that you mentioned, The McMaster's Guide to Homicide, Murder Your Employer. So I wrote what I think is going to be a good chapter in the next volume in the series, which is going to be called Murder Your Mate.
Ooh.
So that's coming your way, but still got some months to go before I finish.
Ooh, I'm excited. That's cool. That's really cool. Wow. Do you know how many you're making your murder series? Do you know on the top of your head right now? Do you know how many?
How many volumes there will be?
Yes, I'm curious. Do you know how many?
I will. The series will end when someone murders me. No, seriously, I know a couple of the volumes, and we'll just see how long the public allows me to get away with this. And there's a publisher who thinks that it's worth putting out. That was a very successful book for me. I'm very happy that it was a bestseller, and I think a lot of people, the main title on the book is Murder Your Employer, and I think a lot of people bought it so that they could leave it on their desk at work, and scare their bosses, just a little word of wisdom to their employers. You're not safe yet. So, but it was nice to get such a good reception, and it's done very well over the last 2.5 years. Just keeps selling and selling.
Yeah, like wow, I really like your book. Or novel. It's really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
Of course. It's really cool too. Like you're a singer, and then I read your book. I was like, what? Like wow, that's wow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When I used to do talk shows in the 1970s,
okay,
sometimes the talk shows would not have me booked to talk. they wouldn't have me sit down and talk with the host. And they'd say, I'd say, or my agent actually would say, why isn't he sitting and talking with you just, and they said, well, he's a singer. And I thought, so that means I can't talk, right? I mean, I don't know what to do if I'm not hitting notes and stuff. But from the beginning, my songs were stories. They all told some sort of story. And, when I first started out, I thought I would have to make a choice in high school between writing stories or writing music. And then I realized if I wrote songs that told stories, I could do both at the same time. And that's worked out pretty well for me.
That's really cool. Wow. And I think, didn't you get Rupert from like a poet, if I'm not mistaken, if I read that correct?
Yeah. Kind of funny. I picked my pen name, Rupert Holmes. And Holmes comes from Sherlock Holmes. I stole his last name. I loved Sherlock Holmes stories, and I wanted to make myself part of his family. So I adopted him. And then I wanted a British first name. You can't tell it from the way I talk, but I was born in England.
Yeah, I was like, you don't sound British. Like I was like, hold up, he doesn't sound British. I'm sorry.
No, my father was an American soldier stationed in England during and after World War II. My mother was an English girl that he met there, fell in love with, and they were married. And a year later, I was born. And I was born outside of Manchester, right in the middle of the country in the north, and in a little town called Northwich. And I have memories of it from age 3 and 4. And I always, when I first started making records, the Beatles were very popular. Things that were British were very popular. So I wanted to kind of identify with that, with the fact that I was born there and had some upbringing there. So I thought, well, I'm going to change my name here. Songwriters always changed their name back then. And I thought, let me find a really good British name that's no one has ever used. And my mother had a favorite poet named Rupert Brooke. And I didn't know any Rupert anywhere in the United States of America. I'd never heard the name. So I thought, well, Rupert's good. Sounds like someone who might be Sherlock Holmes's younger brother or something like that. So that became Rupert. But Rupert Brooke was sort of the inspiration for that name.
Wow, that's cool. So if you don't mind me asking, do you legally go by Rupert Holmes or your real name David Goldstein? Which one do you go?
Most everybody in the world calls me Rupert.
Rupert. Okay.
And it's funny when I, as I told you, when you start out in the 1960s, when you were trying to become a songwriter, if your name was David Goldstein, you changed it. Bob Zimmerman became Bob Dylan.
Yep.
Carol Klein became Carol King. And Garfunkel and Simon became Simon and Garfunkel. That's a joke. And the very first time I met a music publisher, he said to me, David Goldstein, nice to meet you. What's your name? Because he just assumed that wouldn't be my name.
Wow.
Yeah. So I made it Rupert. But when I'm with people who knew me from high school, I tell them, if you want to call me David, that's fine, or Dave, that's fine. I don't want them to have to play that game. Growing up, my children all heard my wife call me D because she knew me as David originally, and they would say, "Why are you calling him D?" And she said, "Oh, that's for Dad," but it was really for David. Yeah, but my legal name has been Rupert Holmes since like 1975, maybe 74. Oh. And I was using that name for many years before that. So I really identify with that name more than I do with David. I've sort of created this other person, and it's like I put all the things that I like doing under the column Rupert things. So I like being Rupert.
That's cool. Sorry I asked. I'm just curious. That's really cool.
No, it's a good question, and I have Slightly boring answer for it, but that was
No,
it.
that's cool. I think it's really cool. It's like the origin story. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, yeah. Now, what I learned later on in life was I went through a lot of old books that I read when I was in England, when I was 3 and 4.
okay.
And one of my favorite books was a book about a cartoon character who was very, very popular in England, not known here, but very popular in England. And his name was Rupert Bear. And I think that, as much as Rupert Brooke, kind of stuck in my head. So I knew the name Rupert from early on, and I always like to say, and it's true, that I was thinking of Rupert Brooke, but I think Rupert Bear was also in there somewhere.
That is cool. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. And then, like you said, like, so you basically got dual citizenship then in England and U.S.
yeah, yeah. When you're born in England, you can't lose your British citizenship unless you go to an embassy, a British embassy, and renounce it. Say, I don't want it anymore. They figure if you were smart enough, the British government thinks if you were smart enough to be born here, then you're entitled to keep your citizenship no matter where else you go. It's not that way for the United States. You can easily lose your United States citizenship, but I have both. However, I have to follow all the rules. When there was a draft, when I was 18, they were drafting people for the Vietnam War, and my being born in England did not exempt me. It meant I had to be available to be drafted. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm gonna sound stupid. This is off as a stupid question, but how do you get your sir status? How does England work with that? Like, how do you?
How does one become a sir?
Yes, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, they say, like, Sir Ian McKellen, isn't he like a sir?
Yeah, I know a couple of sirs. I do. Um, it's an honor bestowed by. I mean, these things are done by committees. It's supposed to be the Queen or now it would be the King. Finally, there is a king in England, but there's a committee. It often has a lot to do with if you've contributed a lot to the economy.
Wow.
I mean, certain people are considered to have contributed so much to the arts that they get a knighthood. So I know a Sir Trevor Nunn, who continues to be a great director. He directed the original production of Les Miserables,
Ooh.
the original production of Cats, Sunset Boulevard, and he was the head of both the Royal Shakespeare Company and the National Theatre, the Old Vic, and they decided at some point, look, this guy's done an awful lot for the culture of our country. He's directed every play Shakespeare ever wrote at least once, and often 10 or 15 or 20 times. So he got a Sir, and it's kind of cool. If I call him Sir Trevor, he hits me. He says, "Don't do that." But yeah, and on the way to a Sir is an OBE, the Order of the British Empire. That's something below that. And the Beatles, there's a lot of controversy in the '60s because the government said, "Look what they're doing for England," they and so they got an OBE. And some stuffed shirts thought, if the Beatles get an OBE, I'm giving mine up. I'm turning it back in. But and then there's of course Lord, so that's I don't really think we have anything like it. I also worked with Dame Cleo Lane, and that's sort of the female equivalent of that. She was starred in a musical I wrote called The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and she was I forget what it's called. It's not called a damehood, but it's the same honor.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that was a stupid question. I'm just curious. I never.
Oh no, it's a good question.
It's really cool. Wow. And then thank you to your dad for his service, by the way.
Okay.
Thank you.
He had an interesting time in the Army. He was a musician, just a brilliant musician. He he graduated from the Juilliard School of Music, which some would argue is one of the best schools of music in the world.
Wow.
And so he was a classical musician, but he was also a jazz player. And when he was 19, he was not only a Juilliard graduate and a classical conductor, but he played lead alto in a lot of the big bands of the jazz bands of that time.
Wow.
He was actually featured on the cover of Metronome Jazz magazine here in the United States, um, for being the youngest professional in a major big band. And during the war, which when he was in England, he had his own infantry division marching band, and and that band would also play at dances for the officers and things like that. And that's sort of what brought him to England. So his service was not only great for the causes it served, but he even continued to flourish musically throughout that.
Wow, that's really cool. And then also another thing of how you're doing. Happy 21st birthday, by the way. Your birthday's coming up. I know that. It's gonna be on Tuesday. I know that it's coming.
Coming up, I found an age I liked, and I'm sticking with it. Now I'll be 78 this birthday. No, I won't be. I'm 78 right now. Oh my gosh, this is my last year coming up of being in my 70s. It's a strange feeling. It really is.
Do you
But
feel?
I'm lucky. I'm in fields where they don't judge you too quickly because of your age. I've worked with a lot of older um, songwriting teams for Broadway. Kander and Ebb were both older than I was. They wrote Chicago and Cabaret and the song New York, New York. And Charles Strauss and Lee Adams, who wrote Bye Bye Birdie, I've worked with them. So I was always the kid. Now I'm no longer the kid. It's weird to be the oldest person in the room when you're working. You know, you work on a Broadway show. I just did one this year, Pirates, the Penzance musical. And you're working on a Broadway musical, and the casts are all vibrant people who are in their 20s or maybe their 30s. And you're there, and you're definitely the oldest. And sometimes your references go right over everyone's head. So,
Oh yeah, like yeah. I mean,
yeah. I'm very pleased that you are aware of the music of the 60s and 70s. And
that's the good stuff. I'm sorry, but that's the good stuff.
it's nice of you to say that. My father had talk about my father again. He had a great philosophy. He said there was two types, and it was the same as Duke Ellington's philosophy about music. He said there are two types of music, good and bad. He could be an equal opportunity enjoyer of. He never really loved rock and roll, but when the Beatles came around, he sort of was able to get into that. He loved great jazz. He loved great classical music, and I grew up um, appreciating all forms of music. By the time I was 5 years old, um, I knew a lot of Mozart's symphonies by heart. I couldn't play them, but I knew them in my head. Dvorak's Fifth Symphony, all the easy ones. My father was crazy about Ravel and Debussy. Um, and I didn't know when I was 5. I would hear Ravel's Bolero. I would hear Mozart's 40th Symphony. I would hear the Everly Brothers. I would hear Louis Armstrong playing jazz trumpet. And I thought that was all happening at the same time. And I thought of the world as just the richest place of music that there could possibly be, because all these, I didn't realize I was hearing a span of 400 years of music. So it was a wonderful way to grow up, just this big, eclectic upbringing musically, just everything flowing in and just loving all of it.
That is cool. That is cool. Wow. Do you feel like you're in your 70s? Do you feel that, or do you feel like
No,
you don't feel
I doubt most. I can now speak from the other side of the equation. I mean, when you are growing up, and I'm talking about 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 even, time seems to move pretty slowly.
you think
And
so?
suddenly you get to the end of your 70s and you said, how did I get here so fast?
Mm.
And I can still, and I'm sure a lot of the people who watch your podcast who are older will say the same thing, which is that there's this feeling that you can draw a direct line, but it's not like you're 17 and then you change when you're 25 and then you become this other person when you're 38. Yes, we can all go through lots of changes, and events, both good and bad, can shape us and make us more sensitive or make us um, um, more forgiving or whatever. But this is the same brain I had in my head when I was 16.
That's cool.
It's got more stuff in it right now, but I'm still that guy. It's just I went to take someone to a restaurant in LA that I liked very much, and I hadn't been in a while, and it was closed. Not only was it closed, but the building was torn down. And I stood there and said, seriously, I wasn't trying to make a joke. I said, that's funny. I was here just 30 years ago. But that's how it feels. It's all one continuous thing. And so but the only time I ever feel anything resembling my age is when there's something to do with my balance or something something I could do 40 years ago that isn't so easy to do anymore, you know. But I still go out on the stage and sing songs, and I know it's the same guy, and the same way I sing, it's still the same way, badly. So
no.
anyway, yeah. So I don't feel that way, but the one thing that I've been very lucky is that my memory has always been. It seems to be a good one. I can meet people I knew in high school, and I will tell them more details about them than they remember about them.
Wow.
And I think that early on in my life, I started becoming a professional observer, and I started thinking that everything was interesting and everything was worth remembering. So I remember lots of junk and stuff that's no good to anyone, as well as very important things too. I was just always taking note, and I love to see someone that I haven't seen in 50 years, 60 years, and tell them about an expression they had on their face at a certain moment, or some comeback they had for a teacher, or something they wore. There are people who remember absolutely everything, but I'm not that. But I'm so pleased that I've been able to hold on to so many memories from age 4 on, 5, 7, 9. I can really go back and pull stuff off the shelf that I hadn't thought about in now, like say 60 years, something like that. I'll say, gee, the last time I thought about that was, and I'll suddenly realize more than half a century ago. So I'm really glad that I can hold on to this stuff. And in my writing, I write mostly, as you can, if you read the McMaster's book, it's set in 1950. And when people said, why did you set it in 1950? I said, well, 2 reasons. One is it's really hard to get away with murder now, but if you wanted to commit a murder in the 1950s, it was easier because they didn't have DNA testing. The forensic science wasn't as advanced. So, and the other reason is because I really remember the 50s. I remember what it was like to grow up in the 1950s, and I want to kind of share it with people because it was so different from growing up now. So it's kind of fun to go back and pretend my characters are all adults, but they are adults in a time when I was wide-eyed and looking around saying, what is the world all about? And it's fun to kind of live again in that era.
It's like a little blast from the past, basically.
Blast from the past. A golden oldie.
That's cool. Well, see, my mom actually calls me an old soul because my music taste, my movie taste, everything. Like, I love all the older stuff. I'm sorry, that's how I am.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I was heavily influenced. This is kind of hard to explain. I was heavily influenced by old radio, what's called the golden age of radio. Now, here's the point. I was really not around for that era. But when I got a little sampling of what radio was like in the 1930s and the 1940s, a little in the 1950s. It was pretty much gone by the 50s. When I got a sampling in the 60s as a teenager of what it was like, I fell passionately in love with it because in radio, you, the listener, the individual listener, is the cinematographer for the show that you're listening to. You make up all the images. And it's so much more powerful when you're populating the hero and the heroine look like you want them to look. Someone once said Superman flew much more believably on the radio than he did on TV. Because he would fly in your mind. You'd imagine him flying, and it was great. On TV, you could sometimes see where the wires were holding him up, not on radio. So I was an old soul, I think. I remember saying that I grew up, and I'm talking about when I was like 12 or 13. I grew up nostalgic for a past that I never lived.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, but there's a poem called Miniver Chibi that paints a dark side of that. I think it's wonderful. I just always thought that there were other eras I would have loved to have lived in, and through writing and through even my songs, I'm able sometimes to go back and pretend I'm living in those worlds and those times.
That's cool. Wow. I wish I could go back in time. I really wish I could just to live that. That'd be so cool.
I know, it would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like you'd see me geek out.
The only way you can, I was very struck as a boy. I thought it was fabulous when I learned something. Most people know this now, it's not a secret, but it was a big deal when I learned it, was that you can view the past. You can. All you have to do is look up at the night sky, because the light from those stars has taken eons to reach the earth, and you may be seeing stars up there that don't exist anymore. You're not seeing tonight's sky when you look up at the sky. You're seeing a sky from millennia, we're probably talking millions of years ago. So the idea that you can sort of see that's a time travel where permitted. There are people who believe that time is an illusion. And I don't mean that they believe this like a religion or philosophy. I mean, there are scientists who believe that it's possible that the passing of time is an illusion, and that all things are existing at one time. And we are observing things as it's kind of like walking around the story. So if I turn to a book on my shelf, and it's a story of a man's life, it has a beginning and an end, and it's sitting on my shelf. And that the end of that man or the end of that story exists right now, even as I'm sitting by it. When I open the book and read the first page, the funny thing is that the end of the story is in my hands at the same moment that the first page is. And I may read going page by page through the book, and I may think I'm traveling through time, but in point of fact, the beginning and the end and the middle all were on my shelf at the same moment. And there are some scientists who think that life may be that way, and that the past never leaves us and the future is already with us, and we just don't have the capability of seeing it all at the same time.
I know what you mean. Wow. Sorry, that's really cool.
No. The idea of time travel is such a popular theme, and the reason is, I think, that it's not about science fiction; it's about yearning.
Yeah,
we all wish we could relive a day that was a wonderful day. We all wish that we could change a day that didn't go well for us. Time travel, in that regard, is the yearning of the human heart to make things better or to not lose things that were valuable. So I think it's a universal theme, and when people say I love the idea of there's some very romantic stories that are actually time travel stories, but they're the height of romanticism,
True. What made you want to become a singer and author, and who's your biggest inspiration for music and writing? I think for music, I'm guessing your parents. It sounds like I'm guessing.
Yeah, there's no way to know. My father, his ancestors were apparently, his father came from a long line of cantors, which are the people who sing at Jewish services. So I know that some of my great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather were cantors. So there must be something musical there. My father was a musical genius. He truly was. He went to Oberlin, which is another great music school, when he was like 15. He graduated from high school that time. So
Wow.
so and I never knew a moment of my life that music wasn't part of it. I mean, I can demarcate my whole life by the songs and music I was hearing. And it was not all of that period, but so I never made a choice about music. By the time I was five, I just, I remember in kindergarten, I wanted to jazz up. We were being taught Jack and Jill, the song Jack and Jill. And, and I insisted on singing it. And this is stupid. It's going to sound really corny, but I'm trying to make a point here. I sang, the song goes, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water, Jack. And I wanted to sing it, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. I wanted to make it jazzy.
That sounds good that way. I'm sorry. That sounds such a catchy.
Yeah. So it was always, that was always there. That was always there. I wrote my first song, first full song. I couldn't play piano, so I just wrote it when I was 6. And it's a very sad song. It's a terrible thing that I wrote this song. I don't know what it reflects on my upbringing, but I wrote, first song I ever wrote went, nobody loves me, nobody cares, just clouds above me. Bad rhyme coming up. I'm in despair. I just wish that I could find someone to take you off my mind, but nobody loves me. Nobody cares. Boom, boom. And that was the first song I wrote. So it was never in my mind that I wouldn't be doing musical things. I started studying clarinet when I was 8. And by the time I was 11 or 12, I was pretty good at it because I had a great teacher. My father was a great, great clarinetist. I was a good clarinetist. And I got to play, when I was in elementary school, they had me play in the junior high band because they needed clarinetists, and I was good enough in 4th grade to play with the 8th graders. And it was always doing that. But the thing is, I was also in love, as I told you earlier, I was in love with telling stories. I loved making up stories. I remember that when I was 4, when I couldn't read, when I hadn't yet learned how to read, one of my favorite things to do was to sit with my friends, and they would have these books with words, lots of words and pictures. And I loved to sit and read the book to them, except I couldn't read. So I would look at the pictures and I'd make up the story and I'd make up the dialogue. And one day a mother said, I didn't know you could read, she said to me. And I said, oh, well, because I couldn't. But I so enjoyed making up the story. It was so much fun. So that never went away. And as I said earlier, I really got sad in high school because I thought that it would take all my effort to go to music school and be a musician. And I also knew that it would take all my effort to try to be a writer. And the two things didn't seem to go together. And then I hit on the idea. I heard a couple of songs that told stories. It changed my life. There were a couple of songs when I was a teenager that had twist endings. And they were remarkable songs. And I thought, isn't that incredible? It's a song, and I enjoyed it as a song, but I was surprised by the ending, and the song had characters. And I thought, this could be the way I can have my cake and eat it too. This could be a way I could do both things at the same time. Now, I would have to start humble. I mean, the nice thing about writing a story song is the story only has to run 3 minutes. You know, you write a novel and it can take you 5 years to write, 7 years in some cases. A Broadway musical, I've had some that took me 8 years to write. Wow. I'm writing different things simultaneously, but a 3-minute song, I thought, if I could just tell stories that way, and I could write the music, and I could even arrange the music, so that would be almost like I was doing the lighting for the story. In other words, I'm telling a story, and if it were on the stage, I would also be the person lighting it. and if there was underscore, I'd be the person writing the music that goes under the dialogue. And I ended up doing that. So when I finally got to write a TV series called Remember When, I would finish an episode, I would write it, and then as a reward for writing it, I was allowed to then write all the music in the show that went underneath it. And so when I would write a sad speech for a character, I would write it and think, I'm going to bring the strings in right there, and that'll tug everyone's hearts if I do it there. I would know what the music was that I would write underneath the scene, even as I was just writing the dialogue. So this idea that I could sit at a piano and tell someone a story and yet be singing, and it would be musical and I could choose the chords. This seemed like the greatest platform that I could ever operate on. And from mid-high school into college, this was what I dreamt of, and I got a chance to start doing such things very early on. I was like 19, and I finally got a chance to write a story that was a song, and the first thing I did in that genre that got put out was a minor hit record. It went to number 13 on the charts, and it just verified that maybe I was onto something here, that I could be doing forms of this for the rest of my life.
The origin story. That's cool. That's really cool. Can you walk me through the songwriting process? I already know the answers, but for viewers at home, Terminal, Escape, and Him, what are they about? Those three songs, if you could.
Sure. Well, both Terminal was a huge song in my career, maybe the most important song I ever wrote, because it made possible my entire recording career.
Wow.
And how it happened was this. I had been working in the music business for about 4 years, maybe, and I was making a lot of. I had to earn a living, and so I took every job I could ever get, because it was just one more day that I was in the music business, meeting people and learning the craft and learning how recording sessions work. And so I did a lot of odd jobs. And one of the things that happened to me was that I became the vocalist on a lot of pop records that were really not rock and roll. They were, some people call them bubblegum. And I got a deal with CBS Records through some demos I had made. I got a deal to make 3 records, I don't mean albums. This is the days when there were 45s. So 3 records meant 3 songs.
3 singles.
3 singles. Thank you. Right term. And so I had a deal to make 3 singles. No guarantee that they would even put them out, but I had enough budget to make to record 3 songs. And they wanted me to make records that in the style that I had been doing, a group vocal sound. I would do all the voices myself. Like, on Him, when we get to the chorus and you hear all these voices singing him, that's all me. That's all one guy. There's no other people singing with me. I just fell in love with the way the Beach Boys could create, Brian Wilson could create a thick vocal group sound, and yet he was actually doing all the voices himself. So I fell in love with that. Anyway, I was supposed to do a really light pop group sound, doing some innocuous things. And I sat there, and I had 3 songs I had the budget to record. And I thought, you've been at this now for 3 or 4 years, which to me seemed like an awful long time. You better make a record that, if that's the only record you ever make, you can turn to your children and say, this is what I stood for. This was the best thing I could do. This was what I was about, or this is what I had hoped to do. I never got to do it at great length, but here's one thing I can stand. You've got to make a record that you can actually say, if you don't like that, fine, but then you're not going to like me, because that's the best I can do in that department. And I had a song I had written a couple years earlier, and guess what? It was a story song. And it was based on reality. I used to, when I was going to the Manhattan School of Music, I used to take the commuter bus every morning, and it was such a drab ride. Um, it was about an hour and 40 minutes to get from my door to the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan. A very long hour and 40 minutes on stopping in every town in New Jersey and then going on the Turnpike and then through the Lincoln Tunnel. And everyone on the bus was like half asleep. And they were tired. By the time they got there, they were already fed up with the day. And I saw something happen on the bus that what happened to me in life is that as a songwriter is I would see something. And instead of writing a song about what I saw, I would write a song about what if what I just saw led to something else. I'll see a couple that didn't seem to make any sense. And I'll say, well, why would they be together? And then I make up a story, and that's the story. So I wrote this song, and it was about a tired commuter. And so I was writing it about a character older than I am. I was at the time. I was like 18. Writing about someone I pictured was maybe 35, 36, something like 38. And I wrote this song that told this story that said, I've come back this morning to where I first came alive, here within this terminal where the buses arrived. I was a commuter on the 804, worked for a computer on the 19th floor.
Yeah.
You came down the aisle of the bus and you sat by my side. Shoulder up to shoulder, we shared that 9 o'clock ride. Oh, my heart was screaming as you left your seat. Following your movements, I was at your feet, and down into the terminal, both of us filed. So we entered the terminal just as you smiled. Won't you leave off work for the day? She asked me then. I changed my tenses at that point, voices at that time. Won't you leave off work for the day? She asked me then. So I phoned in sick on the way to the home of a friend. We were all alone from 10 a.m. till 3. Really thought the fire had gone out of me, but you awoke the sleep of my life from gray into red, made the weary wonder of Wall Street rise from the dead. I could have held her body my entire life, but I had to get home to the kids and the wife. And so I left for the terminal where I began. No, I wouldn't have left if I'd been half a man. So here I am this morning, where love had asked for the dance. Here within this terminal, where I passed on a chance. Lord, I'll never find her. Though I've truly tried. Probably she's found another bus to ride, and I am now about to begin the last of my days. I'm within what others would call a terminal phase. I myself can only say it's living dead, riding to the office with a song in my head that goes, and then he starts to hum that.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is not what the label has paid me to record. They want me to come in with a cheery little chipper, bubblegummy group sound. Like other, and I thought, you better make this one record. They heard this record. And they said, well, we were going to put this record out under a fake name, because that's what people did. They would put out a record as the Archies. There were no Archies. There was studio singers as the Cufflinks. Anyway, they always invented names after the record was if the record was a hit, you'd hear the name. Anyway, sorry. They said, we don't want to put this out. We were going to put this out as a group called Rosebud. But we don't want it to be Rosebud. We hear a singer-songwriter here. This isn't a group. This is you. We want to put this out as Rupert Holmes. And I said, well, that's wonderful. That's the best news I've ever heard. But I don't want to make one single. I want to make an album, because that may be the only album I ever make. And initially they said, no, we're not ready to make that commitment. And I said, okay, then that's that. And I had a terrible week. And then a week later, they called and said, we've thought about it, and we'll give you a budget enough to make an album. And then that's how an album my first album, Widescreen, got made. But it was that song, Terminal, that you named, that changed everything, because now I was a singer-songwriter and I got to do 10 songs that told 10 stories with 10 different sets of instrumentation. And this leads us to another story that I'm not getting into here now, but Barbra Streisand heard that album and called me up and said, I love your songs and I would like to record some of them. And that changed my career again in a gargantuan way. But it all came from sitting down and telling that story of a tired commuter who has the chance for love in his life, and passes on it. The responsibilities of his daily life outweigh the chance to find the fantasy he's always yearned for. And so that's how that came to be written. And it made everything that came after that possible. All because that one song sort of won over the heart of a record label.
Wow. That's my favorite song by you. I'm sorry, Rupert, but that's my favorite.
You're hearing a very young me singing it, pretending to be older than I am, and getting to write the strings that play along at the end. And it was just, I was doing everything I had ever wanted to do in a record studio, in a recording studio. And it was just a wonderful time. And I think whenever I'm enjoying the work I'm doing and considering myself to be the luckiest sod on earth to be having the chance to do this, it usually seems to show there's something that communicates itself to the listener. They can say, well, he's enjoying himself. I guess maybe I should be enjoying it too. I think in my plays, when the audience laughs, I think they can sense that the guy who wrote this thought this was funny. Maybe it is. We'll laugh. So that was the story of that. The story of Piña Colada is a very different kind of story, and that was more pragmatic. And yet again, it was necessity created a situation. It's a very long story. And all of the stories I've been telling you are long, so I'll try to bring it down to as short a version I can mention. I was recording my 5th album, and although other singers had success with my songs, and certainly Barbra Streisand was recording my songs, I myself had not had like a top 20 hit.
Wow.
And it was on my 5th album in another era.
Sorry, I'm pointing to it right here.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Absolutely. Right above your head.
Yes.
That album is above a lot of people's head. I had the album I was recording, Partners in Crime, as it was shaping up, it had a lot of ballads on it. And I needed something that had a kind of up-tempo feel to it. I had a couple of up-tempo numbers, but not a lot. And I recorded this track for song, and how I recorded it and why I recorded it, I won't get into here. It's on the internet. But what happened was that I came down to, it was the night before the last day of recording of the album. And I had a musical track, and I had a melody line, but I did not have a lyric that I was happy with. I didn't like the lyric I had written, and every time I tried to write a different lyric, it just didn't work out. So that night around 1 a.m., I'm seated at my kitchen table, and I'm scheduled to record this song for which I don't have a lyric. 1 a.m. the next morning. And it's 1 a.m. and I know that I have to come up with something. And the budget was spent. We only had this one day in the studio left to record the vocal on this last song and do any additional material that I might want to be doing on it, like any guitar overdubs, that kind of thing. So I saw the Village Voice, a newspaper of that time. This is 1979. And the back page of the Village Voice had all these personal ads of people trying to find somebody to connect with. And I thought, why do people place these ads? They always describe themselves very glowingly.
Mhm.
And I thought, if they're so wonderful, if they're as wonderful as they say they are, um, why are they placing an ad? And I thought, well, let me be fair. Maybe they're just looking for the excitement of meeting someone new that is out of not in their normal sphere. Um, I thought, what would happen to me if I answered such an ad? And I thought, oh, I know what would happen to me if I answered an ad like that. And so I wrote this story song.
Mm.
And not only was it a story song, but I even made sure that it had a twist ending.
Oh yeah, the ending of it. I was like, what? That's yeah. I know what you mean.
Well, growing up, I was a big fan of stories by a writer named O. Henry. And a lot of his best stories, The Gift of the Magi, for example, has a surprise ending. The Cop and the Anthem, a surprise ending. And I thought, well, that'll be a special effect in a pop song. To have a twist ending that no one saw coming. There'd been a couple in the past. So I wrote this very literal song. And the chorus that I wrote that night at 1 a.m. Went, if you like Humphrey Bogart and Getting Caught in the Rain.
The Casablanca actor.
The Casablanca guy, right. Because I thought, well, maybe they're both movie fans, you know. That morning at 10 a.m., I got on mic, and just before I was going to sing the song, I thought, Humphrey Bogart is not the right reference to kick off the chorus on this song, because Humphrey Bogart is a black and white image. It's cinema noir. It's the Warner Brothers sets, dark, you know, always puddles of rain. It's always no movie that Warner Brothers ever made in the 1940s. It had always rained that night because there are always puddles on the street because it looks good from a cinematography point of view. So, so I thought, that's wrong for this couple. This couple is looking for color in their life. They're looking for excitement. They're looking for a vacation, as it were, something as thrilling as going on vacation. I thought about the fact that when you go on vacation, if you go out on the beach, you always want to order a very festive drink to kind of announce to the world that you are on vacation. And to yourself, you say, you know, I would never normally order a drink that's blue, a cocktail that's blue, but today I'm on vacation, and to announce that I'm on vacation to myself, I will do that. I thought about what drinks were escape drinks, and I thought of Mai Tai and daiquiri, and then I thought of Piña Colada, and I promise you, I had never had a Piña Colada at that point in my life, never drunk one.
Wow.
But when I went, if you like Humphrey Bogart, and then I thought, no, if I add an eighth note to that, it'll be one. If you like Piña Coladas, I said, oh, that's mellifluous. That's got a nice kind of bounce to it. If you like Piña Coladas, and I went with that.
Wow.
And the song was called Escape, and the record label called me and said, good news and bad news. The good news is people are loving this song, and they're calling all the radio stations asking them to play it. I said, what's the bad news? They said, you called the song Escape, and no one is referring to it as Escape. They're saying, can you play the song about Piña Coladas? Can you play that Piña Colada song? And we please change the title on the label, print new singles. And instead of it saying Escape, can it say Escape, parenthesis, the Piña Colada song, close parenthesis. And I bent under pressure from the label. They said, if you don't do this, it's not going to be a hit. I did that, and now most people call the Piña Colada song. But again, that was a very methodical process. Necessity was in that, truly, if ever necessity was the mother of invention, it was that. It was 1 a.m., and I had to sing the song in another, whatever that is, a number of hours. I had to write the lyric. I wanted to make it a story song because there wasn't anything more interesting going to happen in terms of music on the record. It was repetitive, and that probably helped. It was probably more repetitive than I usually write. And I accidentally, at the last minute, or impulsively, I should say, chose a phrase that stuck in people's minds, that word Piña Colada. And there are a lot of people who have no idea about the story of the song. You clearly do. and the twist ending. But a lot of people think it's just a song about isn't it fun to be drinking pina coladas.
No, it's a very different story, like you said. It's a way different.
Yeah. And then him was sort of in between the two. Him was a situational song, and it was born from an experience somebody I knew went through. And it was sort of half true, and then just the rhythm of the song sort of insisted that I get assertive in the chorus. It wasn't the kind of song that has to kind of hammer to make a payoff, and I took a lot of time doing the vocals on that record. But that record went to number 6 on the charts. A lot of people, everyone remembers Piña Colada. I think thanks to Yacht Rock and Siri having a channel, a Yacht Rock radio channel. I mean Sirius, not Siri. Sorry, Sirius having a Yacht Rock channel. That I see many more airplays for him than I did, say, 10 years ago. But they're all, each one is its own process and requires a different approach. There have been songs I wrote where I knew what the arrangement would be like before I wrote the song itself. I knew what the feel of the arrangement would be. And then there are some songs that I wrote as prose and then decided to set it to music. So there's lots of different ways to the same end.
That's cool. And him, like, too, you feel bad for the guy because, like, with the cigarettes thing, it's like, wow, you know what I mean? Like the reveal, like right there too. It's like, yeah, I'm talking about. Like, wow.
Yeah, it's a strange song because the fellow's been betrayed.
Yeah.
And what I thought was, well, he could write a song that's where he's feeling sorry for himself, or he could write I could write the chorus assertively, and have him say, well, this has got to stop. You know. I wrote another song once called Walk Away, which was the same theme, which is basically when things aren't going right in a relationship, sometimes the very best thing you can do is just walk away from it and feel good about where you're going and realize that every ending to any relationship is also clearing the way for a beginning of a new relationship.
You got a lot of great songs, and like, wow, your storytelling is really, really good. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that you're following the stories. It means a lot to me.
Of course. And when I think of Escape, like you said, I think of your Top of the Pops performance. That's the first video that comes to mind when
I'm sorry. I may have misheard what you said. What did you say?
I think of the Top of the Pops performance video.
Oh, Top of the Pops. Yeah. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Back in the day.
No, that was a British TV show. And here's the odd thing about that video. The record was number 1 in the United States. And I went to England to try to promote the single. But England, it had not been released yet in England. So here I am singing a number 1 record it's number 1 in the United States to an audience that's never heard it before. And so they don't have any idea, who is this guy? Why is he on this show? What is the song about? And sometimes it takes a couple listens before you actually hear the story of the song. And what made it worse was that the director of that episode of Top of the Pops, he had dedicated 4 cameras to the next group that was going to be playing. It was live TV. I'm actually singing that song live on Top of the Pops. With, cool. By the way, not with my band, with some union musicians who were hired. So they weren't really in the groove at all. They weren't my musicians. They were like people who showed up, older people, older than me at that time. And we're saying, okay, how does it go? I guess it goes like this. And he said, I've got a great way. I've unfortunately committed 4 cameras over in the other part of the set to another rock band because we need 4 cameras to film there. They're very done. But you're just one guy. So you're just going to walk around the audience with 1 camera the entire time. You're just going to sing to 1 camera. And I said, and never cut away, never go to another angle, never, usually when the guitar solo comes in, you cut to the guitarist,
Yeah.
He said, I said, but what'll I, during the guitar solo when I have nothing to do, what should, he said, pretend you're playing guitar, and it was really economics. He had already committed the 4 cameras to the next number. So I was stuck with having to do something you never do on TV, which is singing a 3.5-minute songs to 1 camera. And the way he got around the fact that that would be so static is he had me just walk around the place, all over the place.
Yeah, up and down the stairs. I never talked about
Yeah, it was like, and I had been doing TV for about, I was a seasoned pro. I had been doing television for about 3 weeks in my entire life. So I'm getting my on-the-job training there. And so it's that I didn't just pass out from being exhausted, walking my way through the entire song and having no musician to play off of, no backup singer to sing with me, no guitarist to take over the lead. And of course, that's the video that circulates most often, as is my luck, of course. But yeah, and still, what I thought to myself is, I thought, a couple of years earlier, I was watching Top of the Pops when I was on vacation in London one summer, and I saw this group called the Beatles. I thought they were pretty good. It was the first, they sang She Loves Me. She Loves You, not She Loves Me. They sang She Loves You for the first time on Top of the Pops. And I thought, and now I'm on Top of the Pops. So that's got to be kind of cool. That's got to be kind of cool.
That is cool. I wish you had a music video for Terminal though. I wish you had a video for that. Like I could imagine the visual, but I wish you had actual video.
Yeah, but can I tell you something? You said something very special there, which is you said, you can imagine the visual.
Yes.
That's what songs allowed you to do, because there was no visual. So when you made up a visual, when you envisioned, and this is why I loved old radio, and it's why I tried to, these songs of mine were just before the music video era. Now, if you hear Material Girl by Madonna, you have no choice but to think of her in the music video that she did. If you hear Billie Jean, you're going to picture Michael Jackson doing the dance, Dave, Beat It by Michael Jackson. You have to picture the video they did because your mind has it on storage, and they're great videos. But in the era before there were music videos, you had to make the movie your own, and it was customized to your own taste. It was what you saw, that story. So what the hero in Terminal looked like to you is probably something very different than if I described that person. That's your leading man. That's your woman. That's your bus line. I know mine is red and tan. Yours is probably not red and tan bus. So
it would be red and tan. Actually, I'm not joking. It would be red and tan.
Where do you live? Where do you live?
I'm in Chicago, but I'm just imagining the setting where you're here.
Okay, well, the bus that inspired Terminal was a red and tan bus. And by the way, red and tan is not one of your most attractive combinations. But
see that too. I could.
but I'm just saying, what you said was a gem, because you say, I can just visualize it. And that's what the magic of radio, whether it was a half-hour mystery or a half-hour comedy show, you were picturing everything, and it was your movie, no one else's movie in your mind. And it forced the listener to be your collaborator. It forced them to write the song with you as they pictured the story. So when I listen to Ode to Billy Joel and I picture them on the Tallahatchie Bridge, I have no idea what the Tallahatchie Bridge actually looks like, but I have my own idea of what I think it should look like. And so my version of Ode to Billy Joel in my mind is different from, say, yours or anyone else's. And that to me was the joy of radio and the joy of being a recording artist just in those last years before everything had a video attached to it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What is your favorite and least favorite song you've written and your least and favorite album you have in your whole...
My least favorite album?
Favorite and least favorite album in your discography. I can't even talk. I'm sorry.
My favorite song I've ever written.
Curious.
This is one of those where people say, if you pulled a gun and held it, if you held a gun to my head. In other words, David, Charles Dickens, in his introduction to David Copperfield, said he's often asked if he has a favorite novel, and he says, well, they're all my children. And that would be like asking a parent to say, who is your favorite child? And then he confesses that of all his children, maybe he's most partial to David Copperfield. So on any given day, I have a different idea of what my favorite song is. There was a song, and it's also on the album that's above your head, called "The People That You Never Get to Love."
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. I'm
And
sorry.
that was one of those songs where I thought, this is as good as I know how to do. I sat down to write about an emotion that had never had to my knowledge, and I could be easily wrong here, but there are some things that for which there are no names. Like, for example, when you're walking down the street and a person walking towards you moves to one side to get out of your way, but you move to the same side, so you're still in each other's way, and then they move this way to get out of your way now, and then you move that way, and then you laugh at each other and you go, "Oh, we did that thing that we do," but no one has a name for that. No one says, "Oh, you, my brother's friend," whatever it is. So there was this emotion, and I thought, can I write a song about a certain feeling, a certain wistfulness, and let the song be the name for it, for that feeling. And the feeling was these people that you see in your life for 8 seconds, 6 seconds, 2 seconds, 30, and they're your full focus, and you think, I wonder what their life is like. I wonder what they are like. I wonder what their story is. I wonder what their sadness is. What thing did they always want that they never got? What thing makes them happier than, oh, and then they're gone. So I wanted to write a song about someone, you see them on a train that you've just missed, at a bus stop where your bus will never stop, or in a passing Buick when you've been pulled over by a traffic cop. All these people, the basic thing is people sometimes, they get into elevators and they look at each other, and one of those people will think, this is someone I could be happy with. And then they get to their floor, or you get to your floor, and you what are you going to, you can't turn to a total stranger and say, it'll be a small wedding. So you get off the elevator and you'll never see them again in your life, ever. And I wanted to write about that feeling of that there's so many people that you could know and who you could care about, and maybe they could care about you. And we all pass each other like crazy. And every miraculous moment now and then, we talk, we connect in some way. But most of the time, you're looking at a train and there's somebody and you think, that's an interesting person. And then they're gone. So The People That You Never Get to Love is a song where I really liked what I was writing about. I was trying to express a universal emotion and put it in something you could carry in your hip pocket as a song. I liked the music I wrote for it. I liked the arrangement I wrote for it. And so that's, if there was only one but there's some songs from the score of The Mystery of Edwin Drood. If I could only be remembered for one song, I'd have a problem, because there's a couple songs I would love to be remembered for. The worst song I've ever written, well, the list is endless. We'd need another interview just to list the songs. Probably, I used to write a lot with a songwriter who was much older than me, and I was like 18, and so we would write whatever song he wanted to write. He couldn't write I was only there because I knew how to play piano. And I wrote a couple of songs that were, I sit there and think, wow, that's atrocious. I'm not going to name them, because if I name them, somebody will say, oh, I wonder what this, I look it up on YouTube. And now they'll be listening to the song I don't want them to ever hear. So I'm not going to say them by name. My favorite album, hard to say. I mean, Widescreen, the first album, was the most important to me, because if I hadn't made Widescreen the way I did with Terminal and with some of those other songs, then I never would have made another album. There would have been no more albums. Partners in Crime, I have to admit, I attacked a theme, which was what two people do to each other, and how they're complicit in whatever they do to each other. The title song goes, it's him and her, it's me and you, we do it to each other, whatever we do, hand in hand, arm in arm. It's always been the two of us doing us harm. The same deal every time. We're all of us partners in crime. And then I cite different partners in crime, different couples that are poison for each other, and yet they can't get away from each other. And that became the theme for the whole album: is the miscommunications of lovers, as in Escape the Piña Colada Song, the misunderstanding, not knowing enough about the person you're living with that you would know it was them the instant you read the ad they placed. Answering Machine, and I always wanted to write a national anthem for the myopic, because I always had to wear glasses, and I wanted to write a song that made people feel proud of wearing glasses. So it's a pretty good. If I had only one album I could put out to the world, it would either be Widescreen or Partners in Crime. I made an album called Scenario, and it was for a Japanese label, because I had a really good following at the time in Japan as well, and they wanted it just for Japan. And I wrote the album knowing that most of my listeners would only speak English as a second language. And I think subconsciously I didn't do some of the wordplay and the storytelling that I like to do, because I was aware that maybe some of that, if I listened to an album in Japanese, the lyrics would not be getting to me at all. And I think that undercut my effort. There's a couple of moments on the album that are okay, that are good, that I like now, but some of it's as if I reverted to those early days when I was writing any song I could write just to try to get a song recorded,
Wow. Well, side question: do you still have these glasses from back in the day? Do you still have those same glasses?
No, those famous. No. I wore a lot of glasses that should have been. If you wanted to make a list of the glasses, the worst glasses I've ever worn, I have a whole batch of them.
These glasses are iconic. That's why I'm asking. Do you don't have those anymore?
You know what's interesting about those glasses? That photo, that album cover. It's the one moment where I didn't know I was going to be photographed.
Really?
The cameraman was on a break, and I was just kind of musing, and I wondered, should I be wearing these glasses in these photos or not? And I'm kind of looking at it, and suddenly there was a flash of light, and he had taken a picture. And out of 2 hours of shooting, they chose the one photograph where I wasn't aware that my photograph was being taken. It's probably why it's a better photograph than most.
Wow. And who's the guy and girl? Do you know who the guy and girl is on the cover?
It was a concept that the photographer had. Since the album, we knew the album was going to be called Partners in Crime, and it was going to be about the miscommunications and misunderstandings of lovers. He hired 2 models from the Wilhelmina Modeling Agency, and they are just models who are posed for their own photo session. He landed on this photo. Then he had it blown up to a giant size. He attached it to the wall and then put a chair in front of it and had me sit there. So I don't know them. I've never met them. They must have seen the album was a gold record. They surely must have seen at least the woman on the cover. You can see all of her face, and he would probably remember the photo session, because that's all they did was nuzzle each other for a couple of hours. I wasn't there at the session. And so she must have looked and said, wow, I'm on a gold record album. Why am I not famous? So if that person, that model, or either one of them, if you see this video, and please get in touch with me. I'd love to thank you for being part of a threesome I was in on an album cover all these years.
That'd be cool, man. They watch this. Okay, would you be down to reunite, like the 3 of you, like as one?
It would be interesting to repost the picture.
Yeah, that'd be funny. That'd be cool.
These three extremely old people. They'd have to prop me up for the photo, I think. Yeah, but that's I don't know who they are. I don't know their names.
Mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone comments on the video, oh, I know they're my aunt or my grandma. I'm like,
yeah. Could be, right?
Never know. And then do you still have that red cardigan? Do you still have that? Or does that
clothing can only last so long.
It's iconic, though. You have the iconic look. The red cardigan.
I think, bless you, you've been apparently. I'm very touched by the fact that you have these photos up there. I don't think I still have. There are a couple things that I wore back then that I still have. I have my touring jacket, my Rupert Holmes World Tour white satin jacket. What I do have is in before all that, in the 70s, I was so big on Sherlock Holmes that I had a lot of capes. I wore capes a lot, old Victorian capes and Victorian suits. And boy, I was trying to get into, how we talk about time travel. I wanted to be in Victorian London. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted it to be 1888. And I thought if I can't get the world to be 1888, I'll at least dress as if it's 1888. So I still have a lot of that stuff.
That's cool. I'm geeking out. That's cool. That's cool. Well, I wish you would come out here for like a tour. Like either it would be a book tour, music tour. I'm in Chicago, like I told you.
Are you in the suburbs? You don't have to. I don't want you to give away your home address or anything like that. But are you
Downers Grove, Darien area? Did you ever hear of that?
say again?
Downers Grove, Darien area. I don't know if you're familiar
Is
with.
that near? There's a couple of towns. I've been in the suburbs. What's the name of it now? It's a tree name. Is there something called what?
Oak Park?
That's it. Oak Park. Are you near Oak Park?
Probably like 30 minutes away, 20, 30 minutes away.
Yeah, I've been to Oak Park. I've been to another place. Well, I had a show called Say Goodnight Gracie, a one-man show about the life of George Burns, and it ran for a couple of months at a dinner theater outside of Chicago. I love Chicago, the city.
Gotta come back out here. Come on, Rupert. That'd be so cool.
I spent a lot of time in Chicago changing trains. I used to take the train from New York to Los Angeles. And in the 70s, when the Super Chief was still running, and by the way, it's a great trip. Everyone ought to take one trip across the United States by train, because most people think the United States is 5 hours wide, 6 hours wide, because that's how long it takes to go from one end of it to the other. And when you take a train from New York to LA, you'd be amazed at how much land there is in between and how beautiful it looks. Anyway, I used to take the train. I would take the Broadway Limited or the 20th Century Limited from New York to Chicago. And in the 70s, you had to then change stations. There were two different stations for two different lines. So you would leave the station, which is, I think, the station that has that great popcorn machine and where they sell all the nuts. They're fresh roasted nuts as you walk in the train depot.
The Union Station?
Oh. Yeah. And then you go to another station. That's where you would get the Super Chief, which went all the way through the Southwest, through New Mexico. And you'd sit and have scrambled eggs and ham while you're passing through the Rocky Mountains in a thunderstorm. And you wouldn't be nervous because you're on the ground in a train having breakfast. That was a wonderful trip. How did I get? Oh, yeah, because I changed trains in Chicago. So a lot of my knowledge of Chicago, and there used to be a club in Chicago called the Blue Max, and I played there a bunch of times. And a lot of great radio. A lot of the great radio shows originated out of Chicago, not out of New York or LA. The Lone Ranger, for example, that was a Chicago show. And WGN was a big station then, still is around, I think.
Yeah, still around. That'd be cool. Like if you came around, like if you do like a book talk, but then you do like 3 songs or something, like a little book talk and a little concert. Like that'd be so cool.
I'll make you this promise. If I finish the sequel soon enough, and I like to sing at my book events. I do a lot of book events, and I like to perform at it because it's part of my life.
It's your resume.
So if I do it, I'll let you know what bookstore I'm going to be at in Chicago, and we'll definitely meet up there. Okay?
Yeah. Keep me in mind for tickets, please. I would love to see you.
All right.
If there was a movie biopic made about you and your legendary career, who would you want to portray you?
It's obvious. I can't. You know what? I don't know anyone now. I think. I mean, I can't answer it seriously. I don't know any actor that I can't think of anyone who reminds me of me.
I mean, you won 2 Tony Awards. Sorry, Clive, but you won 2 Tony Awards. That's impressive. You worked with so many people. Like your whole origin story in itself, like they should make a movie about you. Like,
yeah, it would be a short subject, I think.
No, I think it'd be fun. I think that'd be
or
cool.
It would be a cartoon, maybe that.
You never know. That'd be cool. If you didn't go into music or writing, like being industry, like the industries of those, what do you think your career would have been? And do you have any hobbies, interests, you like to do in your spare time?
I'm very lucky. My hobby is exactly what I do for a living.
Wow.
I
So
mean,
right. Okay.
I'm as lucky a human being can be because if I didn't earn a living doing what I'm doing, I would almost certainly do it anyway. I'd just be more frustrated and probably very hungry. Um, so, I mean, my hobby one of my hobbies used to be collecting old radio shows from an era that I never lived in. So I used to have literally thousands of classic radio shows from the 30s, 40s. Most of them are now pretty much available. You can find them on the internet, so that's a wonderful thing. I had to get them by mail, but no, I mean really, I all the things I do are the things that I delight in, and uh, and somehow I've been able to finagle it. I've been able to land it that I earn a living doing it. So I'd be sitting at the piano noodling, trying to write some song now, whether I had ever made an album or not. I would be trying to write stories and hoping that someone would publish them if I weren't a novelist who's had novels published and sold well. So, yeah, what you see is my hobby. What you see is my hobby.
Do you know what you would have done as a career instead of music or being an author? Or
I think I would have, I think that had I not been challenged, I think I would have been, as my father had been, a music teacher.
I was say I could see as a music teacher. You just read my mind. I could see being a music teacher. I'm just saying.
I look more professorial than celebrity. What happened though was, I mean, there's no way to know what would have happened to your life if certain things, it's just that's why time travel would be interesting.
Mhm.
Um, I came to feel there were some people who made me feel pretty bad about myself in high school, and maybe they were justified in many ways, but they made me feel like I didn't have much worth as a. No one took away from me that I played the clarinet well, and I had a certain people had to acknowledge that I had a certain knowledge, certain basic knowledge of music. I don't think they thought of me as a songwriter, but I was familiar with music, and but as a writer and any all these creative things, I don't think anyone. There were people who made me think I was useless,
Wow.
and they spurred me to show them. And maybe that's not the best motivation you could ever have, but it was basically like I'll show them they're wrong.
Yeah, proving they're wrong. I know what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. I'm better than they are willing to concede. I'm worth something. I have value. And you know, let me put it to you this way. Let me explain it to you this way. Sometimes people come up to me, young people, and they say, "I'm thinking about being an actor."
Hmm.
Because I'm a playwright as well. And then so they think, well, you know what? And they'll say, I'm thinking about being an actor. And I will say to them gently, and not to be mean, I'll say, if you're only thinking about it, that may not be for you.
True.
Because to become an actor, a successful actor, is so frustrating. And so many doors will be slammed in your face. And so many parts will not be yours. And so many auditions, you'll walk away thinking, being rejected, that unless you are compelled to be an actor, that you won't settle for any other life in the world than to be an actor. And you'll just bang your head against a brick wall until the brick wall finally says, I give up. I say, maybe it requires that kind of, so you may get lucky. Oh my gosh, you could be thinking about it and not take it seriously, and you go to your first audition, and you're perfect for the part, and they say, you got it, and you think, oh, this wasn't so hard. But most of the time, it's really hard.
Hmm.
And if I hadn't had these people where I thought, I'll show them they're wrong about me. I'll show them that they've underestimated me. To constantly keep me plugging away at the record business. It took me 10 years to be an overnight success. It took me 10 years to have the Piña Colada Song be a hit. And there were so many times when it would have been very easy to quit. And I didn't always, I just eked out a living for many years. So if I think had they not motivated me to prove myself, then I would have been very happy to be a music teacher and to pass along to students what I loved about music. And the storytelling would probably have just been something that I thought, gee, in another life, maybe I would have been a novelist. My father was a music teacher in the end, and he found a lot of meaning in that. He had hoped at one point to be a legendary musician or conductor.
Wow.
He conducted the string section of the NBC Symphony Orchestra in a series of light classical radio shows. I have the recordings to this day.
Wow.
His announcer on that radio show is also on my first album, Widescreen. I use him on Widescreen, a man named Ed Hurley. And he had a fall because he was involved with radio, and radio was scuttled and TV was brought in. So he had to take a job as a teacher to earn a living, as a music teacher, and a terrible paying job. Music teachers in the 50s into the 60s, terrible salaries. And yet it ended up being, I think, the thing that saved his life and gave meaning to his life, because he realized that he was having a huge influence on young minds. And it wasn't that he thought that every kid that he taught music to was going to become a great musician, but he did think that they would never approach music as a stranger again, that they would always have a little bit more insight into music and feel a little more personal relationship to whatever kind of music they listen to. I think that meant a lot to him, and I think he meant a lot to them. So if I had been very lucky as an alternative to this thing that I do, I would have, I'd probably be teaching music. Oh, I'd be retired by now, wouldn't I? I would have retired 13 years ago, I suppose. But I would be teaching music somewhere and probably be very happy and fulfilled.
So would I call you? Can I call you Mr. Holmes then if you're a music teacher?
Yeah, if I'm a music teacher, you can address. I think Mr. Holmes is good. We've ruled out Sir Rupert. Yeah, that's fine. Mr. Holmes is fine. But if we're hanging around watching a baseball game, call me Rupert. Okay.
Who's one person dead or alive, you like to have dinner with, and why? If you choose one person.
I was at the New York Times. I'm sorry, I'm getting sentimental here. I got to get a Kleenex or something.
Oh, sorry.
So,
welcome back, Rupert.
Interested in keeping with what we were talking about. So here's a book from my parents' bookshelf called, can you see it there? Yeah. The Collected Poems of Rupert Brooke. Can you see that? Can you see it on screen?
Maybe move it back. That's cool right there. I can see it. I can see the whole thing. Whole book. That's cool.
So that's where I assume I got Rupert from. But this is a book that I read growing up when I was 3 called More Adventures of Rupert. And that, by the way, that's Rupert Bear right there.
Okay.
So it's a mystery as to which one I was more inspired by. Now, you were asking, my friend.
Oh, who's one person, dead or alive, you want to have dinner with, and why? One person.
Oh, the people I'd like to have dinner with are some of them I don't want to meet. I had a chance to meet John Lennon.
Okay.
And a chance to meet the actor Cary Grant. I don't know if you know who he was.
Yeah, I've heard of Cary Grant. Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't want to meet them because I worshiped them so much that I knew that there was no way they wouldn't disillusion me. I was so afraid if I met John Lennon that he would say something smarmy or insulting, and he would destroy the reverence I had for him. And I thought better to just let it let it be, and keep that John Lennon in my mind always.
Like the don't meet your heroes thing. Is that what you mean?
Say again?
You talk about like when people say don't meet your heroes, that type of thing?
Yeah. That's it. That's the thing. It's now sometimes you can meet a hero and they turn out to be as wonderful or more wonderful than you thought they'd be. So, like the TV show called Frasier, and one of the stars of it is a fellow named was at that time. Okay. So one of the stars of the TV show Frasier was David Hyde Pierce, wonderful guy.
Plays his brother, Frasier's brother. Oh my God, I'm blanking
Right,
the character's
Frasier's brother, right? Niles.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I forgot.
I've gotten to do 2 Broadway musicals in which he starred, and it turns out that he's a hero I met and turned out to be better than I could have ever hoped for. The nicest man ever met. So sometimes that can work out, but for me, I wanted to play safe. I'm going to name some names. One name you won't probably know is Robert Benchley, who was a humorist in the 1920s, 30s, into the 40s. And his style of humor is I grew up on. I started reading his essays when I was 10, delighted in them, and he's influenced everything I've written. So I would have loved to have met him just so I could get down on my knees and say thank you so much for all the laughter you've given me. I did get to meet Steve Allen, who was a hero to me. That he was a TV personality, who was a very funny comedian. He could sing a little. He was a terrific songwriter. He was a great jazz piano player and a terrific personality. And on top of everything else, he wore glasses, which nobody wore on TV in those days. And so he gave me hope that a person with glasses could be in show business. I've always wanted to have dinner with Shakespeare. So I asked him, who are you? Because there's so many different schools of thought on who Shakespeare was, including the possibility that he was Shakespeare. You know, people want to attribute a lot of different identities to him. So I would like to sit down and say to him, who the hell do you think you are? So those are some of the people I'd like to meet.
That's cool. And you always said like meeting your heroes, like, you know, like I actually got to meet my hero, Rupert Holmes.
Oh, get out of here.
Oh, really? You are an inspiration.
Nonsense. Don't be
no, you are my hero, Rupert, because I love to write. That's my main thing.
All right, let's instead just I'm your friend. How about that? Okay.
That works. My friend Rupert. Sounds like a book, My Friend Rupert.
Yeah, it does. It does. Sounds like a bad sitcom in the 1950s. Oh, My Friend Rupert. Starring Betty Hutton. Okay.
Your personal favorite movies, shows, sports, and teams, and food.
Oh my God.
Your favorite.
All right. Okay. Favorite movies. That would be another. We could do another 200. I could name 200 movies off the top of my head. I think that there's certain movies that, you always think if you could only have one movie to watch on a desert island. Of course, if you're on a desert island and you have the projection system to see the movie, it's a pretty good desert island. But I think Groundhog Day is a really brilliant film, and it is both entertaining and silly and giddy and touching. I think the movie North, and I got to meet Bill Murray the other day, and I was so, again, about meeting your heroes, I was so in awe of him that I couldn't say a word. Someone said, Bill Murray, this is Rupert Holmes. I was going to perform, and so my mind was on the performance, and he said, Rupert, and I said, hi, Bill. And I stood, and then we just both stood there, and it was like I wanted to say, hey, but I didn't say anything. So Groundhog Day, North by Northwest, maybe the most entertaining film ever made, directed by Alfred Hitchcock with Cary Grant, who I told you I had a chance to meet and didn't meet. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. And a film score to that movie, written by Bernard Herrmann, one of the most gorgeous scores ever written, one of the most beautiful main titles, every aspect of it. And by the way, it's all taking place, a lot of it takes place on a train to Chicago. And in Chicago Station and in the suburbs of Chicago. So it's required viewing. Oh, gosh. The version of A Christmas Carol with Alistair Sim. Any Sherlock Holmes movie on any given day. Let's keep it at 4. And what other things? Favorite sports?
Shows, sports, and food.
By shows, what do you mean? TV or Broadway shows or plays?
TV shows, my fault. I'm sorry, TV shows.
Okay, I'm very fond of a TV series I wrote called Remember When, WENN, and you can, if you want to see it, you can see it. You can see it on YouTube for free. But if you want to see it with the best picture it's ever had, I make no money from this. I don't want you to think I'm trying to do a plug here for any reason other than personal. I'm very proud of that series. I wrote 52 of the 56 I created the series. I did most of the music at the underscore, and I wrote the theme. I sing occasionally on it, even though I'm not on camera. I'm never on camera, but my voice can be heard. Brilliant cast, set in 1939, so I traveled back. Time travel. How about that? I traveled back to 1939 when people were kinder to each other and where no one swore and where the humor is kind of, I wrote a kind of what is called like a farce every week. No laugh track, no commercials.
Wow.
So if you hear laughter, it's your own and you're finding it funny. You're not listening to a lot of people who were recorded laughing. Remember When, you can get it via, like if you go to Amazon, you can get it on Amazon Prime through AMC Plus. I don't like the AMC Plus app. It's hard to maneuver, but if you get it through Prime, you can get it good. Or if you'd like to see it for free, you can see it on YouTube on something called, I think it's called, on a channel called Antenna TV. It's not the best image, and the subtitles, closed captions aren't that great, but you can see it. If you don't have the money to see, they've done a wonderful version of it where they've kind of upgraded the image to something approaching high def. It was all done on film, and it looks like an old movie, an old color movie. And it's set in 1939, 1940. What could be better than to go back to 1939, 1940 and be it's about a radio station, people doing the very thing that I love. And I wrote a lot of original songs for it too. TV shows, I've watched every episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show every year of my life since it first aired in the 60s. I learned most of what I know about comedy writing from the Dick Van Dyke Show. The cast was brilliant. The plotting, sometimes the episodes had really interesting plots. It wasn't all just put down jokes. And I think Mary Tyler Moore still holds up very well, the Mary Tyler Moore Show. A lot of good shows out there now. Some of them have made it to streaming TV, and it's fun to watch like 5 seasons in 3 months. But I'm plugging the one that I'm proudest of because that's one of the proudest achievements of my life. It was hard to write 55 episodes of a TV series all alone. And favorite, I'm not going to name. No, I got too many. I work with too many people on Broadway. If I name a Broadway show, they'll get mad at me. What else?
Sports teams.
Sports. I have been stuck with being a New York Mets fan since 1969. It is a curse. It is not a blessing. It is like something you accept in life that you're going to have to live with. There is a world of people who are meant to be Mets fans and people who are not. I envy those who are not. They've broken my heart most years of my life. They seem to take, whenever we have a good team, it's as if they take pills that make them weak. And by the way, you as a Chicago person, Chicago Cubs versus the New York Mets, one of the great rivalries of all time. New York Mets, I've never been able to watch a hockey game. I'm sorry. I can't. It just seems like, I don't know how you do radio commentary of a hockey game. Whoa, there, the puck goes red, and now it's going back, and now it's coming around. Oh, they're getting angry. Now it's going all over the place. Oh, it's gone around behind net. Oh, it's good. Baseball is a nice, neat game. You can picture a baseball game on the radio. It's like the board never changes, and you know where each player is. So pretty much baseball. That's the only sports. That's the sports my sport addiction. Of course, I like any. If I tune into any football game in the third quarter, I will get caught up in it, and I will always end up rooting for the team that's behind.
So
And
the underdog, basically, the comeback.
underdog thing. When the team that's behind in the third quarter pulls up a miracle and gets ahead, then I find myself rooting for the team that was in the lead because they're now the underdog. I just always have to say, "Oh, I know you can win this, and we can go on like this forever." And by the way, my song and my voice was heard at this year's Super Bowl, and it's been in 2 other Super Bowls as well in commercials, and so we kind of like that. But pretty much it's baseball. And anything else?
Food.
Food. Oh, geez, that's.
What do you like to eat, Rupert?
I know. Well, I never met a shepherd's pie I didn't like. Have you ever had shepherd's pie? It's a
shepherd's pie. My mom makes it a couple times. I've had it.
Yeah, pub food. Of course, a real shepherd's pie is made with ground lamb, and in England, because you're a shepherd, it's sheep. If you have a shepherd's pie and it's made with ground beef, as most shepherd's pie are, in England they call it a cottage pie because you're eating it in your cottage, I guess. Shepherd's pie food. I love ramen. I love ramen. You like ramen?
Ramen's pretty good.
There's something about all those noodles, having all those noodles to get. It's almost like in the beginning you pretend it's about the broth. You eat the broth and you think, oh, what lovely broth. And I'm just waiting to get to those noodles. It's such a satisfying feeling to take 400 noodles and have them in your mouth at one time. It's just a great thing. Food, so many foods I love. I never met a restaurant I didn't have the ability of loving.
I would say, do you like pizza? Because if you come out of Chicago, we could take you to a good pizza. But wait, you're in New York, so I don't know about that now. Do you like?
We got a problem there, my friend. We got a problem. It's like, this is a pizza? A pizza's really this thick? Really? Really? Where I grew up, the Nanuet restaurant, they had a thin crust pizza that was like, you needed a microscope to prove that it actually had a crust. And it was a very good thing. I actually have had deep dish pizza in Chicago. And enjoyed it immensely. And there's a hamburger place near, I think, that I have to go to. And I blanked out what it is now, but I have to go there. It's a legendary old hamburger place. Maybe out near the ball field. I'm not sure. You can't name a food I don't have something that I like. I had my first lasagna when I was like 8 years old in Hartford, Connecticut. I'd never heard of it, and it's been a love affair since then. It's just, what's not to love?
I mean, I'm Italian, so I got it, like lasagna, I think.
I know, I understand. Fish and chips, very fond of fish and chips. I love bangers and mash. That's another pub food. I love English bangers. I love a full English breakfast or a full Irish breakfast. In England, a treat for a savory is beans on toast. Heinz baked beans on thickly buttered Hovis toast, and it's from the gods. It's from the gods. So there's so much stuff. I can get really excited about a decent frozen custard any day of the week. I have even had a couple of pina coladas that I enjoyed.
You've had pina colada? I was asked, did you ever have a pina colada?
Yeah, I did. Well, here's the thing. We went from my having never had a pina colada, right? Never had one, ever. And wrote a song that made it famous. Because there were a lot of places, this is all 1979. There were a lot of places in the Midwest where no one was quite sure what a pina colada was. Florida, Miami, they knew what a pina colada was. But now I have a #1 record that everyone's calling the Piña Colada Song. And wherever I go in the country to perform, someone has the bright idea of buying me a pina colada. And they think they're the first person to think of buying me a pina colada. And they'd be sitting, and we'd be at a party and they say, waiter, you're going to love this. 2 pina coladas. You know who the 2 pina coladas are? And you want to be polite to people. So if they bought you a pina colada, you have to drink it. And so I went from having never had a pina colada to where I had a pina colada almost every single day of my life. Sometimes I would have to like set it down and then forget it and lose it because you can only drink so many of those before they get OD on them. But I have had some very refreshing and delicious pina coladas. It all depends on how fresh the pineapple juice is, pretty much, you know. So that's a good thing. Foods, I could talk with you about foods endlessly. Um, I mean, you know, I eat meat. I'm not a vegan. Not that I have anything against vegetables. I will go to a wedding if they just tell me they're serving pigs in a blanket. You know what pigs in a blanket are?
Oh, yeah, I've heard pigs on a blanket before.
Yeah, little short hot dog wrapped in pastry and
Yeah.
served with a kind of Dijonnaise mustard. I will go to a wedding just if they're serving those. I'll just stand by the table and eat them all. Yeah, yeah. And then there are foods that just take me back to my childhood, so that's cool. No one does Jello. When was the last time anyone ever had Jello?
Jello. Sometimes I eat Jello if I'm sick though.
Yeah, that's what happens is there are things that parents give their kids when they're sick. And later in life, if you have them, you start to feel sick because you associate it with So, for example, it was all the thing in the 1950s. If you were sick in bed at home, your parents would usually give you either ginger ale or black cherry soda. You don't see a lot of black cherry soda making the rounds anymore.
Never had that.
Soda. And because of that, whenever someone serves me a black cherry soda and I'm stupid enough to drink it, I start to feel ill. And it's what I associate with that, because usually there'd be the black cherry soda. I think it was to cover the taste of the medicine you had to take. Medicines tasted terrible in the 50s. They hadn't come up with good delivery systems for them. And so your parents would give you the black cherry soda to get the taste of the terrible medicine out of your mouth. So whenever I drink black cherry soda, I feel like I've just had some awful medicine and I feel a little sick. And a little bit ginger ale. Yeah, I mean, I could just you name a cuisine and I'll tell you what I love about it. But yeah.
Would you be willing to come back on for a part 2, answer some fan questions?
I would love it. I'd be delighted to, and I've really enjoyed talking with you, and I've had a lot of fun here today. Yes, I'd be honored to. If when your sanity returns, you still want to have me here as a guest.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. I'd be glad to. I'd be happy to. No, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Rupert. Thank you. Now, before I ask my last question, this is the part. Can you sing some of Escape if it's possible?
Sure. First of all, I once heard it sung in Oslo, in Norway, in English by a Norwegian singer. And I don't usually sing this, and I'm not making fun of any Norwegian people. Oslo is a wonderful thing, but the accent that we traditionally give to some Norwegian people speaking English it's pretty accurate. And it seems like the opening verse of the Piña Colada Song, sung with a Norwegian accent, is like a perfect marriage of Norwegian English and candidates to be. So they recited it and it went like this. Now I will sing in a moment, but I don't often get to do this. So he said, "I was tired of my lady. We'd been together too long." And now this is the best line. "Like a Burnett recording of a favorite song." So yeah. So originally, as you know, I wrote, if you like Humphrey Bogart and getting caught in the rain, if you're not into, now I've thrown myself because I've never sung that line before. Okay, I have to do the right line. If you like Piña Coladas and getting caught in the rain, I'm not much. No, what am I doing? I was tired of my lady. We've been together. It's one of those things. You know, do you know if you interrupt? Have you ever seen a spider's web and it looks like really weird? Like there's like a second web within the web.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
You ever seen that? Do you know why that is? A spider only knows how to make a web from start to finish. And if the spider is making a web and he's in the middle of making a web and he gets interrupted by something, a threat to his life, And then he says, where was I? Oh, I was making a web. He can't start he has to start from the beginning, even though he's in the middle of the web. So anytime you see a weird web that's got like a web within the web, that was a spider that got interrupted. And it just happened to me because if I sing the song out of sequence, I've sung it for 45 years, is it now? 45 years. And I can't, it's the one song where I sometimes forget the lyric, because what happens is when I'm singing it, I've sung it so much that I leave my body and I start thinking about other things. Seriously, I'll say, oh, that's a very nice chandelier over there. That's interesting. I wonder if they mean, and then I'll look and say, where am I in the song? Now I'm singing all this time, but I'm on autopilot, completely on autopilot. So it's the one song I sometimes forget where I am. So you asked me to sing a bit of it. I will. I was tired of my lady. I'm singing it a lot lower than I did when I wrote it. We'd been together too long, like a worn-out recording of a favorite song. But while she lay there sleeping, I read the paper in bed. And in the personal columns, there was this letter I read, and it said, if you like piña coladas and getting caught in the rain, if you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain, if you'd like making love at midnight in the dunes on the Cape, then I'm the love that you've looked for. Write to me and escape. The end.
You do still sound the same and look the same. I'm not even kidding. You do look the same and sound the same. Like, how do you?
Well, that's very nice of you. I think you're a very good-hearted person. Thank you. And also, I would, if I were you, go to an optometrist as quickly as you can. Don't even wait overnight. Go to an all-night optometrist, because clearly you're in need of correction of your vision.
Rupert, is there anything you want to promote and shout out that the viewers could check out? I could link down below, like your book.
This has been so. I got to plug my TV series Remember When, because I want people to see it. I don't make any money from them seeing it on YouTube. I don't care. I thought it was a good show. It's a funny show. It's a very good-hearted show. I want you to watch a couple episodes before we next meet. Okay. And so I've done my commercial already. Thank you. When I come back on, and I would be glad to do so if you invite me, maybe I'll have something then and I'll mention it. Okay?
I'm excited.
Great. This has been great fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful questions, your wonderful responses, and for caring about my work.
Thank you. You are like a legend, though. I keep saying it, but you are.
I'm a legend in your own mind.
Thank you again, Rupert, for the awesome, amazing time. It was an honor chatting with you.
Pleasure.
Have a great day, everybody. Stay awesome, and Rupert, you stay awesome.
Okay, I will, and I'll see you soon. Okay?
That works.